Welcome back to the back half of the NFL Every Game on the Board. We're bringing in Robbie Veno to close it out. Rob, welcome in. How you feeling?
I'm doing good today, Drew. How about you? It's another, the beginning of another long, busy weekend.
I'm doing good. It is. You're right. Happy Friday to you. And let's try to find some winners. We're going 4-6-9 to the end of the card on Monday night. All the NFL games here. We got 4-6-9, 470, Kansas City versus the LA Chargers, not to be mistaken for the San Diego Chargers. 3.5 at home, 48 the total. Robbie, how you looking to bet this one?
Yes, seemingly a real popular pick are the LA Chargers to win the AFC West this year. I see a lot of, coattail riding here, and I guess that's why we see the move off of the field goal to 3.5 now, and potentially maybe even a little further. I'm not sure how much further, though. It's a interesting matchup, Drew, because Kansas City is kind of shifting in identity. They really started last year shifting in identity with the poor play from their defense, and I don't know that that's going to get any better this season. They just aren't a good defensive team, but the excitement there, as everybody knows, is for Patrick Mahomes, the new quarterback for this team, dynamic young kid. And they've got a lot of weapons around him. So they'll be more offensive-based than defensive-based this year once again, while the Chargers, are trying to – and I think they have actually done a good job of rebuilding an offensive line to try and keep Phillip Rivers healthy enough for these next couple of years while he's still got a couple left in him to see if they can make a run at things. Biggest matchup to me in this game, and probably the only reason why I didn't take LA in this contest laying 3.5 is the fact that it looks like Joey Bosa is not going to play in this particular game. And for San Diego, aside from Phillip Rivers, their best asset is that pass rush and those bookend D-ends that can apply pressure and would really, in my estimation, if Bosa was in, they could really frustrate Patrick Mahomes in this game. Not that they won't to some degree. However, I think this is more manageable for a Kansas City offensive line that's pretty good. And like I say, Mahomes has a boatload of weapons out there. So I didn't play the game. I think the total is indicative of what you'll see in a lot of Chiefs games this season. The fact that Rivers still scores points for LA. I think another big difference here real quick before we wrap this one up in LA, I think this season will be the fact that, that offense, Drew, is an offense that when you look at them statistically through games and then at the end of the season, you see a lot of total yards. But they're a field goal type team. They just don't get into the end zone often enough to get touchdowns, but I think that might change this year. They've seemed to improve the ground game and the offensive line a little bit, and I think that's going to help. So look for LA maybe to be a little bit higher scoring team this season. Once again, I didn't lay the 3.5. I wish Bosa was in the game because then I probably would have been there.
Yeah, Robbie, and this is an important one if you're looking to bet it either side. I mean, you can find 3.5s almost across the board, but there are a couple threes with a little juice at the Greek, 5 dimes. So also, if you're in Vegas, at CG Technology. So we know how important the number 3 is in the NFL, and this is just an example of to have more than one sports book is very important when betting any sport, especially the NFL. Moving on, we got 471, 472, Seattle, Denver, 43 the total. Looks like Denver laying 3 at home, Robbie. How you looking to bet this one?
Yeah, here's another transformation of a team, right? Seattle comes with the label of a solid defensive team without much offensively. That's going to be reversed this year. The defense has been decimated by a ton of either free agent moves or career-ending injuries to where they're almost unrecognizable right now. Earl Thomas did end his holdout, I think yesterday or Wednesday. His status for Sunday still up in the air, and whether or not he could go all game at Earl Thomas Pro Bowl type level in the altitude of Denver, that remains to be seen. I wouldn't count too much on Earl Thomas in this contest. Of course, Seattle could use him down the road to help in that secondary, which, like I say, the corners are different. The safety play is different. KJ Wright's out at linebacker here. So they have to really turn to Russell Wilson, a revamped offensive line, with Dwayne Brown at left tackle now, I think this offensive line, which has four pretty solid pieces, and I guess they're going to go with George Fant at right tackle, which would, at least he's had some experience. It would give them a better offensive line than what they had last year when we saw Russell Wilson running for his life constantly. He's got a nice wide receiving core. Chris Carson is a good running back. So Seattle, much like I just said about Kansas City, but I think in a much more drastic form, is turning their sort of philosophy. I don't want to say their philosophy, but the way they'll have to win games would be with their offense rather than their defense at this point. For Denver, the Case Keenum acquisition helps them by 100% at quarterback for sure. They got zero quarterback play the last couple of years. And the draft choice Bradley Chubb, I think, had a lot of people happy way back in April that he was going to team up with Von Miller, but that defense loses a little bit in the secondary with the absence of Aqib Talib, so they're not exactly the same either. Good pass rush team. Beyond that, not really sure. Saw this game open at Denver 1.5, quickly kick up to 3. I think it makes sense, Drew. I did play them, the Denver Broncos, over 7 wins this year. I just think that the improvement on offense should be enough to get them over a 7-win total combined with their schedule. And, people seem to believe that Seattle's on a downward slide to bet this game from 1.5 up to 3. Total was 42.5, sits at 42.5 almost universally right now.
Robbie, we got Dallas traveling to Carolina, 42.5 the total. Another important one to shop around. We got 3s, we got 2.5s. Carolina laying at home. Interesting one here. A lot of eyeballs probably going to be on it. 4:30 start in the Sunday afternoon. Cowboys Panthers. You got any opinion on this one?
Yeah, this one I might have to take a little bit of a wait and see approach. Although I tend to believe what Dallas is selling right now, Drew, and what they're trying to sell is that their defense is far better than what people think. And when you go over it on paper, you kind of have your doubts, but I think that where pass rush is concerned, they're absolutely right. This is going to be a good pass rush team. And anytime Sean Lee is on the field at middle linebacker, it's a drastically better team, and statistics bear that out. They claim that the secondary is far better, and I watched a few Dallas preseason games. Jason Garrett doesn't care too much about preseason, but when the first unit was in, Dallas fared pretty well, and I'm not so sure that Cam Newton and company are going to have an easy time of it with the Cowboys here. Ezekiel Elliott, no 6-game suspension this year. He's ready to roll right off the bat, and he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. They still have, despite the fact that they lost Des Bryant, I think that the passing attack is still real good. It seems as if they'll lean on Cole Beasley a little bit more. Remember that tight end was a real security blanket for Dak Prescott, but now, of course, without Jason Witten, he's going to be in the broadcast booth. It looks like Cole Beasley's going to be that sort of security blanket for him. But they've got threats across the field as well, including Michael Gallup, rookie receiver from Colorado State, who looked really good in the preseason. So there's a lot of hype surrounding Carolina off of that 11-win season last year. And Dallas seems to be very much under the radar. I may get there with the Cowboys here, plus the points. We'll see. It's a road contest, which makes it a little bit tough. But the pass rush may be able to get to Cam Newton here in this one.
Robbie, would you say Cam Newton's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL?
No, I wouldn't say top 5. Well, it depends what you're asking me. I mean, if you're asking me for a pure passer, but you're probably asking me all around what he brings to the table. Is he top 5? I still don't think so. I think I could get 5 in there that I would take. He'd be just on the fringe for me. Okay.
Hey, we got 475, 476, Washington, Arizona. Arizona laying 1 or pick 'em across the board. There is a 1.5 at Jazz right now. And 43.5 the total. Robbie, how you looking to bet this one?
You know, it's hard for me with Sam Bradford at quarterback here. I'd like to be there with Arizona because the David Johnson return makes all the difference in that offense. But the quarterback matchup here, when I look at Alex Smith against Sam Bradford, I just really want to favor Alex Smith. He's a guy who doesn't turn the ball over. He's a guy who's got a real abundance of weapons to throw to. Their running game somewhat suspect, but he's probably good enough to get by here. I just don't know that Arizona is as good as what they're cranked up to be at this point in time. Obviously, the line tells you a little something too, Drew. When this game came out, pick'em, Arizona at home, odds makers kind of telling you that they believe Washington's the better team on a neutral field. The game has since moved to 1.5. A big play either way could win this game, but I think Washington's probably the better side here. Defensively, to me, 1 through 11, I think they're better. And like I say, the all-important quarterback position, I know Sam Bradford's accurate, but I would much rather have Alex Smith and his mobility with the Redskins here and all the weapons that he has. Arizona, let's not forget, lost a lot of wide receiving weapons in the offseason. John Brown. In fact, John Brown, most people who watched the Baltimore Ravens this entire preseason and through their practice sessions believe that John Brown came out of it as the top receiver for Joe Flacco's offense. So we'll see how that goes. But that's a lot of production to lose from this Arizona team. And Larry Fitzgerald, as good as he is, he needs a little bit of help out at wide receiver so he can take the double team attraction off of him. I think I'd lean towards Washington in this game.
Okay, like in Washington on the road. Robbie, we move Sunday night action, 4-7-7, 4-7-8, Chicago, Green Bay. 47 the total. Looks like 7.5 pretty much across the board. Actually, some 7s now showing up, especially if you're in Vegas. How would you look to bet the Bears-Packers, Robbie?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I really do believe that what Matt Nagy has brought to the Chicago Bears as their new head coach is going to work. And you just look at them personnel-wise, and they look a lot different than they looked a couple of years ago. They're so much improved with a dominant running game, with receivers now that Kevin White is healthy, the former number 1 or first round draft pick out of West Virginia. Multiple wide receiving options here. Mitch Trubisky, who looked real good at quarterback last year, they preserved him in the preseason. I think he only played somewhere between 30 and 40 snaps total in the preseason, so they want to take care of him. And, of course, when you add Khalil Mack to the defense, that helps as well. Problem is, of course, that Green Bay is so explosive on the offensive side. Aaron Rodgers with a new toy and Jimmy Graham at tight end. I don't know how you're going to keep that team out of the end zone now with him having such a good red zone threat. Going to be very difficult. It looks to me like a game where Green Bay's upgraded their secondary. For the last couple of years, Drew, I've really picked on Green Bay totals and played their games up and over because they just couldn't stop anybody, especially when it comes to the forward pass. And there's been some upgrades made there that we may have to look at, but I still think Chicago can find some holes. I think if you can get to 7.5, I think it's probably well worth taking the Bears. They're going to be better than people think. I just don't know that they can win the game, so you're probably in this contest with a ticket on the Bears, rooting for them to stay close, which I think they can do. I just don't know that they could win it straight up.
Robbie, we got 2 more games on Monday night. Did want to let everybody know about your NFL Blue Chip total of the week, 58% on your 20 stars, up 87 units last 4 seasons. And this year, guys, we're doing all the 20 stars for $10 less, so it's only $29. And also remember the 100 off coupon code when you're checking out if you want Rob's full season NFL, college football, whatever you guys want. We got 479, 480, New York Jets, Detroit Lions, 45 the total, 6.5 Detroit laying at home. Robbie, how you looking to bet it?
It seems to me that Matt Stafford could have a field day in this game, and this may be one of the most lopsided mismatches that we see in week 1 as far as Detroit's passing offense versus the Jets' pass rush, which, it was their biggest need going into the draft, Drew, and they just didn't come away with any type of pass rusher, whether it be through free agency or whether it be through the draft, and they're stuck, Todd Bowles is, without a dominant pass rusher, and it's kind of lucky for him that he falls from that Rex Ryan defensive tree where they like to disguise things and come with blitzes from all angles, because that's what they're going to have to do. If they're going to get any pressure whatsoever on opposing quarterbacks, they're going to have to rush extra guys, which only opens up the passing game for teams with 2-3 weapons inside that passing game. Detroit certainly has that. They've upgraded the ground game here by getting LeGarrette Blount to be a power back on the goal line. We know Detroit's had so many issues in the past couple of years when they get down close, not being able to stick it in the end zone. Theo Reddick and company, a lot of small backs here. Ahmed Abdul from Nebraska. But, I think they're probably going to be able to dissect the Jets secondary here because the Jets just can't pass rush. If I flip this game over and look at what the Jets have going for them offensively against the Lions, it would be the same type of advantage because Detroit doesn't rush the passer very well either. But Ezekiel Ansah is going to play in this game, and that helps the Detroit pass rush a ton. They've got a better secondary than what the Jets do. The Jets right now, it's kind of a patchwork deal at secondary, and a key injury to note back there as well. I'd look for Stafford to have a big game here. I don't know that laying 6.5 is that big of a deal, and I like to apologize quickly to Amir Abdullah for butchering his name a couple seconds ago while I was giving you the rundown on the Detroit running backs.
No worries, Rob. I'm sure he won't mind. 481-482 LA Rams, Oakland. At Oakland here, we got the Rams laying 48.5 the total. Oakland, I don't know, with catching 4 at home, Rob, you think the Raiders worth a look?
Well, John Gruden's going to fall out of favor real quick if they don't perform defensively, right? I mean, that Khalil Mack trade has already got a bunch of Raider Nation up in a tizzy. You can understand why. Best defensive player they have, best pass rusher that they have, and now he's gone. And the centerpiece, actually, of that, maybe not the defense, maybe the team, unless you consider Derek Carr to be the centerpiece of that team. So there's a lot to be seen here. How Oakland's going to fare on that defensive side of the football where they weren't that strong to begin with is going to be in question against an offense that really lit it up last year and brings everybody back. They got Aaron Donald in on the defensive side late off of his holdout to team up with Ndamukong Suh up front. We know that they went and got a couple of high-profile cornerbacks during the offseason. Aqib Talib from Denver, Marcus Peters from KC. So everything that the LA Rams and head coach Sean McVay did was to bolster that defensive side of the football, knowing that they had a good offense. Oakland's probably overmatched on paper. However, they don't play him on paper. They play him on the field. And I think John Gruden made it very, very clear about the second week of preseason in an interview where he said, we're going to be a physical run-style offense. And if they're able to run the football in this one, Drew, and keep the Rams offense off the field, it could be a closer game than what I see a lot of people think. I also believe that, that total, which at one time was 49.5, and now we see it coming down to 48.5. I think that's a smart move here. I think that if Oakland is able to run and grind some clock, and that will be the approach of John Gruden in this game, if they're successful in that, then less points on the board, obviously, and we'll see how that defense holds up against the Rams. But I think when you look at that contest, probably the best way to look might be under the 48.5.
All right, Robbie. Well, that does it for all the games on the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast. Make sure to check out Robbie's 20-star in the NFL. We also got some other 20-stars up, both college football and the NFL. And remember the 100 off coupon for the full season NFL. Get it for under a dime all the way through the Super Bowl. That includes college football through the national championship. Robbie, anything you want to throw out to the listeners before we shut this down for the week?
Not too much to add here, Drew, except like you mentioned, go ahead to the home page. The plays come up at Sports Memo Fast and Furious from Thursday through Friday, and the line moves just as fast on these games. So if you're not already a client, you should go ahead and latch on, because that cuts your time in getting these picks way, way down. You'll get them almost instantly and be able to get to the window before big line moves happen. But I think it'd be an interesting week 2 here, Drew. Good luck to everybody listening, and certainly to yourself as well.
Yeah, good luck to you, Robbie. Hopefully we're talking next week with some more cash in the pocket and winners to the clients. Make sure to follow Robbie on Twitter at RobVenoSports. That does it for us for the week. Enjoy your weekend. Best of luck with your bets, everyone. For Rob Veno, I'm Drew Martin. Thanks for tuning in.